Hey guys, this is Jage with Kievski Diaspora. This next piece is from our 12th night program. This is Adam Barnes doing his piece talking about muskets, English, French, Dutch, and even Russian. It's a long piece, it's a little over an hour long, but it's definitely worth listening to if you have any interest in historic muskets.
So, are we just diving in, guys?
Yeah, go for
All
it.
right. I don't know what H and Abby put on the program. They put lots of words, but they talked about this is an old presentation that I'm going to put a few of y'all's specific unit stuff in the back, so y'all have to forgive me. The Arms of the New World. If y'all know me, the ones that y'all don't know me, I'm an arms nerd. Okay, I love firelocks. I love matchlocks. I'm one of them nerdy guys. I don't really care about, well, I do care about your uniform, but I'd rather you have a proper musket, and I'd rather it be functional and not a wall piece that you hung in and some dude made out of a beer can. Having said that, I do not make Cadillacs. I make GMCs, guys. But I try to make them off the original. So Arms of the New World, what we as reenactors, and I didn't understand it either when I first started. When we look at surviving pieces, most of the time we look at a high-end piece, okay? Because this is the one that wasn't beat to shit by some private soldier, okay? There's there's really two distinct, and then you can get some subsects. So all your European powers, basically, I break it down to your Catholic countries and your Protestant countries. Them are your two different schools of thoughts on arms, okay? And then when you get to it, when you're looking at your Catholic countries and your Protestant countries, the two main drivers we want to think is England all the time. England was just catching up. It was the Prussians and the French. Them are your two main schools of thought. Now the English are, since they had an empire that ruled the world, I'm English all the way, so I'm like, okay, I'm playing a Frenchman, by the way. But my descendants. The English, they wanted to say they drove it, but they had some really wrecked things. Having said that, the French drove it. So here's the difference in the two main schools of thought. Your Protestant wants a functional piece. They don't care what it looks like. Protestant make plow shoes, okay? French wants it to look beautiful. It's marvelous. You look great. You don't send your wife to get high heels from England. You send her to Paris, France, right? Then they worry if it functions, okay? So does the king like it? It looks great, it's marvelous, it feels great, I hope it shoots, okay? I say that because every French reenactor here, it's like, I want to Saint Anne, I do the F&I, and I want to Saint Anne because they found so many Saint Annes. You know why they found so many Saint Annes? And I'm calling them Saint Annes because this is my southern accent, okay? It's because the king of France got screwed up in a contract and sent 1,200 Saint Annes to New France, and 600 of them blew up. So the Canadian Marines and Militia went, I don't want no part of them son of bitches. That's why they find so many of them up in Montreal. It's because the actual French troops were like, they walked away from them, okay? It also cost that descendant of Saint Anne at that point in time his head in court because the French king sued him. And when the French king sues you, the French king wins, right? So we're going to talk about that. Well, this whole long convoluted thing, we all think of high-end pieces. That's what survives. The Catholic principalities did it even more because, to put it in perspective, you look at the English army, it's 30,000 troops. That's their standing army, okay? It's a very professional army. It's a very old army. And when people go, what do you mean old army? I'm not talking about time that it existed. The actual troops in the British Army are considered old men in Europe. The French Army is a young army. It's 17, 18, 19. Them are their troops. That's the age of their troops, right? A British regular, I'm not talking about a provincial, I'm not talking about a fencible, I'm talking about a regular. He was in his late 20s and 30s. A lot of them 40s. And people are like, what are you talking about? The English king says, give me a man that's failed in all his business and he will be loyal to me. I'll give him 3 squares and a pensioner. And he'll be loyal to me forever. He was right. Old men get really sour and really ignorant, and like you can tell young men, run up the hill and charge up there and charge there, and they're like, yeah, we do it. And old men, we stand back there and go, go around the hill, let's set this on fire and go around, you know? So 30,000 strong. Having said that, the French army, 400,000. Y'all are playing Russians. How many did
At the start of the war, it was 400,000 Russians.
All right, so here's the different scope of arming these nations and these principalities, right? The English fill the gap with fencible regiments, with provincial regiments where you have to acquire your own arms. It's a private arms manufacturing. The French are not so. The French have 3 major arms manufacturing. The Russians have 1 and then turn up to be 3. And the Russians, y'all confuse me. The Russians confuse me. It's like, here's the models and we're gonna wad all this shit up. Okay, that's how the Russians do it. We're gonna do it this way, you know. The Prussians, it's simple. When the Prussians come out with a model, when they come out with a 43, guess what? December 31st, 43, that's when they change models, right? The French come up with a model and they're like, we're gonna come up with this model in 28. We're gonna institute it in 34 because that's when we got to it in the court. And by 38, it was actually in the field. The English are gonna say, we're gonna institute a 56 model, but by the way, we started it in 45, and if it failed, we blamed it on a lower subordinate, and to hell with it. We didn't know what happened to it. So we proven it, and then we make it a model. Okay? So having said all of that, we're running through all this. Am I going too fast? Am I all over the board? The French army had 3 grades. You had a private's grade musket, you had an NCO's grade musket, and then you had an officer's fusee. And people are like, what? And I will show you later in some French documents, I'll show you some English documents. The English had that, but not so much because the English didn't have such a large standing army. The Prussians had this. And people go, well, what's the difference? All right, an officer's fusee is going to be fine. It's going to have a lot of carving. It's going to be fit well. He's going to be able to argue and make it customized. So he's going to be able to make the gun maker do it his way. He's probably going to have his trigger pull if he's wealthy enough, right? Your NCO is going to be very finely inletted, very finely done, a very functional, robust piece. Your privates, it just depends on what part of the war you're in and what country you're in. Going to be very little to no inletting. And people are like, that's bullcrap. I'm like, okay, go look at some original beat up pieces. A lot of side plates aren't even inletted. Sometimes trigger guards, it depends on where they're at in the war. So you have 3 different grades of musketry, okay? So, and then you end up with shortages, so then it ends up great. This is me at Williamsburg, just to show you, anytime I see a rack of guns and swords, I'm gonna get a picture of it, okay? Having said all this, this is how the British Board of Ordnance does it. Does this look really neat and organized? No. This is somewhere a card game and a large tavern in here deciding all of this, okay? We don't have standardized parts, but this is how this goes. Everything goes to the Board of Ordnance, okay? You also have roll armory, gun barrel fitters, rough stockers. We'll come back to that later, all right? Setups, Board of Ordnance, we're going to go out to appropriate depots, we're going to go personal authorities and regiments. So we have this standardized in 45 in the English Army. 1745 is the new Reformed Army, okay? The new Reformed Army made everything so streamlined. They made the British caliber between 70 and 80 caliber. So we think in the modern mind, they're like, well, they standardized that. Yeah, from 70 to 80 caliber. Okay? The old system is the colonels bought everything. Okay? What little I've studied on the Russians, you can have the colonel buy it, the brigadier general buy it, or the czar or czarina order it, and it's worse. The French, you have 3 major arms manufacturers. It's all done in court, and who has done whatever to get whatever contract. What it all boils down to, you as a reenactor, is we always think of Charleville because they were the French army contractor. Let me rephrase that. They were the French army contractor. Saint-Étienne and Charleville argued over the army because how large did I tell you the French army was? 400,000, right? Toul was the smallest of the 3, and he was a shrewd enough guy that he was like, I'm not gonna get in this. I'm not high enough ranking in court. So you two worry about the Army. I'll get the contract. He was really good friends with a guy in the Navy department. He goes, I'll supply the French Navy. And he got the French Navy contract and the French Marine contract. Anything, but what people don't realize is the French Navy administered all of the French colonies. Okay, and people are like, huh. So that's how Tool got around that. That's why you see a lot of Tool hunting muskets. That's why you see the natives. That's why you see a Wilson trade arm from England look like a French arm, because natives wouldn't trade for that heavy English arm. Okay? So, and if I'm going too fast or confusing people, please, this is a talk. We're supposed to be having fun. Raise your hand, ask questions. There's no stupid questions. There's just some stupid people. I'm not one of them stupid people out there. But there's no stupid questions. Here, of course, this was set up for an English talk, but here is the different locks from 28 to 30 you're changing, and by the time you get to the 50s, you see a banana lock, no bridle, banana lock. If you look, there's different makers' names. Tower has run through the Board of Ordnance. You have a lot of independent makers. For y'all as Russians, you're like, who cares? It's the brown bess, who cares? This same model is going to happen to Russia. You're going to have what, the Tula arsenal? Am I correct in saying this right? Did I pronounce it right? The Tula arsenal. But you're going to have a lot of independent contractors, and you're going to have Russia buying a lot of arms off a lot of other Europeans. And having said that, you ended up with a lot of brown besses in places, but it was after, I think, the period that y'all were reenacting. Am I right? That a lot of,
we know there were 40 to 60,000.
okay. So you're going to see the Russians using a lot of captured arms. You're going to see them using a lot of contract arms. And I'm going to get to my favorite arm here in a little bit. And here, all right, I want to show you the pattern. Pattern 27, long land, blah, blah, blah. Y'all don't care about that. The patterns on the English, like I said, what's confusing about the English is they instituted a new lock or a new pattern and they sent it to the field. What would happen is one of these independent producers would produce a musket. A colonel would buy it. They were like, this is a good idea. They'd take it to the field. If it failed, it never becomes a standard pattern. So what's confusing is you'll end up with originals. You end up with a 28 pattern with a 45 date because that guy's still making you get what I'm saying, a 28 pattern lock. It might have 1745. You might actually see a 56 lock with a 48 marking on it, and you're like, well, that can't be. Well, that was before it became an official pattern. You will find that in the German service a little bit. The Russians, y'all are all over the board. You'll find it in Russia. The French, you're not gonna find that. The French, if you get a 28 pattern and it's got a 28 on the lock, it's a miracle. It's gonna have a lot of 30s in it. Like I said, the French move on with it. Oh, now what did I make it do wrong there? So we're gonna go through 42 locks, you're getting a little straighter, but the big thing about 42 is you have a bridle. If you're a reenactor, all I know is everywhere you go to reenact, they're gonna tell you gotta have a flash guard, right? Mm-hmm. And they're nasty. There are some period flash guards. They're nothing like what we reenacted with, that little piece that we all put here in this nice little cup that makes all of this kick up our whole lock and make big fireballs in our eyes. That's what's going to be important to you. If you're a reenactor, you want a bridle lock. If you want to be original, actually get an original made flash guard, and you don't have to worry about like 90% of the problems that the reenactor flash guards do. But if you're going to reenact on a field, you need a flash guard. So what's important is I'm going to show you on some of these reproduction guns, and one of your guys is going to go home today with a single bridle Dutch lock, and everybody's going to go, oh, don't put that nasty flash guard on it. I want to show him how to put a period flash guard on. But 42 locks. All right, we get to 56. Do y'all see anything different? See me being an arms guy. The lock's straight. I no longer have an individual's name on it. I have Tower on it because everything, the British were starting to get clamped down. The war's rolling. This is an easier lock to make. It's got a double bridle. The cock is really big and fat now instead of this beautiful gooseneck. It's that. The stock is getting straighter. It's kicking harder. If you'll notice, French arms, early Russian arms, all the early arms are meant for comfort, even though I told you that the Protestant stuffs were not as comfortable. A French cow's foot to me is natural. I mean, it's just natural. It feels good. It brings it to the eye. It's a fowling piece. It's a good natural feel. An English fowler is still an elegant thing. All of the early stuff was meant to shoulder, to shoot. It was gentlemen. It was trained troops. The wrists were small. They were light. They broke. As the war progressed, you see this really stocky, heavy, uncomfortable, like a modern brown bass that we call a Pedersoli. I'm not going to gripe because Pedersoli is fantastic. They spark, they're good. The Japs are even better. If you can get a Jap bass, get it. It's like a big cigarette lighter. It's gonna light. It's great. That design is for an untrained army. As people died, as stocks broke, you'll find this out. The French army left the cow's foot because he was restocking so many guns. The British left that elegant 28 slender. If you look at a 28 brown bass, it's 46 inches long, and you look at it and you're like, there's no way. Thing balances great. You go to a 56, it's a Pedersoli. It's okay, but here's different pattern locks. Now we have 38 and 46. Look, this is a big old flat lock. A lot of people, we think of guns, and we think of musketry, and we think in the modern world that, oh, now, hey, well, we're reenacting 1756, and we're not going to have any. Number one, if you're reenacting 1756, it's really not cool to have a 62 something dated, right? But if you're doing 56, what people don't realize, nobody threw anything away because metal's precious. There's no power tools. Like when I build muskets, I use electric sanders. It's wonderful. All that's not there. So it's a lot more time in it. These are all naval locks. Let's see, sea surface locks. They're flat. The reason they're flat is where you can actually brush the salt and the crap off of them. They're easy to clean. Having said that, if you're in the English army, I don't know, what would the equivalent of a Scot be for the Russians? A Slav? A Slav? What? Cannon fodder. What's cannon fodder for the Russians?
All of us.
Huh? All of it? Poles, okay. No. For the English, cannon fodder, Scots, Irish troops, and then you spin it.
Yeah, that's
All right, so what I'm trying to get to that is you hear this. When I was first started reenacting, I got a lot of great Brit friends. I did Brits forever, and you always hear about the mythical Highlander carbine. I mean, it's right up there with unicorns and rainbows, right? Ever Scott, I mean, it's the Holy Grail, right? It was a parts musket, y'all. They used 1710 things. They didn't put entry thimbles. It was that, and they were like, send that, we'll call it the Marine and Militia musket. We'll give it defensibles and provincials and Scots. And you know which ones we're going to give the Scots? Because we're going to call it a carbine. We're going to give them the ones that the barrels are so wore out, you chop them off to where the barrel quit splits. Should I relay that again? We started with a 46-inch long barrel. We're going to make a great carbine. We're going to give it to the Scots. Wow, they're going to fire a few rounds and throw it down and go back to their tendencies to draw their sword. They're cannon fodder. But not right, they're cannon fodder. But we're going to give them, so I hear all these great reenactors like, I have to have a Highlander carbine, and they're like, I'm like, it's a parts musket, guys. And we have like three different, it's so much so we have three different models. The first model is all this sea service pattern in Marine and Militia. Why I'm telling you this story that y'all don't care about is I used to do Brit forever. I've done 1st Virginia forever. You go down south to the Cherokee where the Cherokee campaigns was, and you have the first rolls, what is it, the 78th, 77th? What other Scott unit was it?
There was just the 77th and the Ross.
Okay, and then you have Carolina Provincials and Virginia Provincials, okay? So you have the 1st Afoot. They're a regular regiment, right? In none of the archaeology digs do you find a brown bess lock. You find them. They're up close to them. Scott troops there. Provincial troops there. Somebody goes, well, the 1st Afoot. Yeah, we still had wooden ramrods and went back to wooden ramrods. So they were all parts guns, guys. The first rolls probably had a better grade, but by that time they were parts guns. So you don't throw anything away. Having said that, y'all looking at Russians, H has sent me and we've got a Russian prototype carbine here, or not carbine, excuse me, dragoon musket. I'm still English. I have to use English or French terms there. But you're going to see all kind of different locks. When you see these, and then we also have to do, if we're not looking at an original piece, we have to understand that this original piece When was the last time it was modified? When was the last time it was in use? And a lot of people get hung up on that. And they're like, well, this is, no. I've seen collectors. I've got some good friends that I do collecting work for. And I mean, they will die on the hill. This is stamped, this is this. And I'm like, it's a Napoleonic stock. And my other collector friends is like, it's a parts gun. They didn't throw stuff away. So when you're looking at stuff, originals count, but you got to remember, when was the last time it was used? Right there, all right, that's the Marine and Militia musket. They call it the Land and Sea Service musket. Okay, Marine and Militia musket. Flat lock, still has that. Sometimes can have a big flat, but they're just simple. All right, do y'all see that side plate? That's an original. Y'all see that side plate? Mm-hmm. Is it inletted in like a nice new Fowler? It's on top, isn't it? That is, what is it for? Provincials and Scots.
Undesirable.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, that's just the way life was. I don't know if it's undesirable. Look at there. It's so much so that we actually got a piece for the thumb for a very outdated manual that they still weren't using toys like that. But people are like, well, what happened? They had the side piece in the towers. What happened? They put the side piece on. Anytime you see a firelock, a musket that has three, predate that. That's a simple. Just predate that lock. That's 1710 and earlier. Okay? It's simple. I mean, that's, and I say that, my buddy Fred will throw something sharp at me. But I mean, pretty much rule of thumb, 3 locks is 17. 3 bolts is older. All right, this is what I like to show people. I love this. This is the actual arsenal. This is a tower, 31st December 54. Okay? Anytime you see the first number, it's serviceable. The second number is to be cleaned. The third number is to be cleaned and repaired. The fourth number is to be restocked. Okay? This is a long way to go around the mountain. But you're gonna notice some muskets. This is a British arsenal, right? The thin red line. These are the professionals everybody talks about, right? All right, land patterns of the King. New pattern with a nose band, 4,000. Without the nose band, ditto. Right here is nose bands without, 300 serviceable. One, you're noticing this? Rough stock. You know what rough stock is? In the white. Does anybody know in the gun business what in the white is? Because apparently there's several reenactors that don't know what in the white is, because they order a gun in the white and then they freak out. And I'm like,
that sounds fresh in your mind.
That is very fresh in my mind.
What is that?
They freak out. All right, if I'm building you a musket, or if I was in the tower, or if I was in the Royal Arsenal, or if I was in Tool, in one of the many tool factories, right? In the white means all the parts fit together. In theory, you could shoot it. It's not sanded. I haven't filed off a piece. When I solder lugs on, it's gonna have solder around it, and I'm gonna make sure it sticks good. I have to file all the excess off it's just put together. So the best way to say it, and it's really not a great example, if you buy a Dixie Gun Works or a Pedersoli kit, okay? That is actually above the white. Did that make sense to y'all? So look, this arsenal, they're gonna send out the troops, 800 rough stock. Now, are they gonna issue them that way? No, but I'm just trying to tell you this is what's sitting in the arsenal. But look, with wooden rammers, old patterns, with and without bayonets, short wooden rammers. Here's what's great. Muskets for the sea service, with bridles, without bridles. Look here. We come all down here. Spanish muskets, armed furnitures with bayonets, 241. Guess what? The English Army give them out to somebody in the English Army. 878 to be cleaned, 450 to be cleaned and repaired. Did you catch that? Spanish arms. My favorite one is, look, Dutch with brass furniture, 641 serviceable. Without bayonets, 72 serviceable, 1,148 to be cleaned, 3,267 to be cleaned and repaired, 528 rough stock. Did y'all catch that? Dutch with brass furniture. Okay. here we got marine pattern, marine old pattern, which means older parts, right? See, where are we at? Just to try to show you, you have all this. Right here is the returns of 57. War's ramped up, right? Every bit of this arsenal's gone by 57. Not one of these muskets here listed is in this arsenal. New land patterns with steel rammers with long pipes, 50,000. England's ramped up to war. Everybody's like, what? So this will mess you up. These Spanish muskets, I guarantee you this is not going to a line regiment. Guarantee this is not going to line. Some provincials going to be like in New York going, what the hell is that? That's what happened. He's like, what the hell is that? Be thankful we sent you an order. The Dutch muskets, we'll come back there. All right, in modern times, if you go all over the globe and you look for military arms, what is the military rifle you're going to see all over the globe? Guess what? There you go. It's not an M16, is it? It's AK-47, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be in a swamp, a jungle, riding whatever other critter you want, because the commies made millions of them and give them to anybody they thought would shoot at us, right? Okay.
Well, so the CIA tons of copies.
Okay, or are we gonna bought them ourselves and send them to another group to shoot at? Either way, I'm not getting into politics, but what I'm trying to tell you, if you want the equivalent of an AK-47 in our period, just in my talk, look, Dutch. Look for Dutch arms. And when the English say Dutch, that's any of the lower Germanic states that are not German proper, okay? They are the arms manufacturer of the world. The French army have Dutch arms. The English army has Dutch arms. The Spanish army has Dutch arms. The Portuguese army has Dutch arms. The Russian army has large amounts of Dutch arms. You know why? It's because the Dutch figured out everybody in Europe is trying to kill everybody. If we make the guns and then give them credit, if you go to screw with me, I will sell your debt to another country. And people are like, what? Prime example, the American Rev War's going on. There's a little Dutch island down here in the Caribbean, right? Yeah. John Adams goes and gets credit because he can't do anything in the French court because he is a total Protestant northern person, so he didn't make it there. We sent a Quaker that liked to talk, okay? He dealt with the French, we sent him to the Dutch, right? The Dutch give us a loan. They shipped Dutch arms up to the colonies, so you had American privateers going down, getting the arms bought, running back. So England's like, you know, this is not cool. So what's England do? We go down there, we have a big navy, we take the island away, right? Word gets back to the Dutch, our islands took. So the Dutch is like, okay, we're getting ready to sell the contract to Russia. And George III's like, huh? We're gonna sell our debt. We're gonna clear Russia's debt if they attack you over our island. Guess what? King George, in the middle of a rebellion, give the Dutch their island back. And the arms trade continued to the rebels. So are you catching what I'm saying? So the Dutch make arms everywhere. What's so funny is the Dutch is in southern Indiana, Illinois, they're everywhere. It's arms manufacture. This brings us to this, Dutch arms. All right, 1741, the English, that's what I've done most of my research, bought 10,000. We have 18,000 obsolete Dutch right here. Virginia, this number right here, 4,500, this went strictly to Virginia purchase. That's not even the Crown, Virginia purchased them. That is 1741 purchase. What's neat about the 1741 purchase? The contract was wrote in 1741. The contract did not get completely filled until 1763. So you have a lot of different things. This is a Dutch musket. This is my Dutch musket. I love this musket. Does it look familiar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what the British Brown Bess is copied after, is the Dutch musket. You have a type 1, 2, and 3. That's a modern collector's term, the modern collector's terms, type 1, 2, 3, Napoleon, they get all this. The British agents that bought them is type 1, 2, and 3. All it means is type 1 is it's iron furniture, and a flat lock. Type 2, brass furniture, flat lock. Type 3, brass furniture, round lock, looks like a Brown Bess lock. I hope I'm not glazing y'all over. Am I glazing y'all over? Why is this important? Do y'all need to know about a Dutch lock? The Russian army had a lot of these, didn't they, H?
Started in 1701.
There you go. So, the Dutch arms trade was very important all over Europe because they weren't at war with nobody. They weren't being shot up. They kept making guns. The French, actually in southern Illinois, we'll get to it. I think it's in this talk. Don't quote me. I think it's over 3,000 some odd Dutch was sent to the Illinois territory for the use of the militia. So the British called the Dutch a first-rate weapon. The French called it a second-rate weapon. I don't know what the Russians called it.
A musket.
A musket. All right. But, I mean, I don't want to have to read it all. The Dutch are very precise people, frugal people. Most of the Dutch bayonets, I love this, you find them all over North America. You're going to find them all over. Basically, they're a flat blade. They're a knife-bladed bayonet. You know why that is? Is because, well, I'm making the muskets. I go over to him because I'm in a hurry because I'm a Dutch gun maker. There's 20 of us, by the way, up and down our little town, and we're all making muskets. And I go to him because he's a farrier, and he's bitching about something. And his old lady's man, and I'm like, you make me a bunch of bayonets. See, a blacksmith can hammer that out. That's what happened. Because I got a contract with a British purchasing agent, okay? Do I have time for a funny Dutch story? I love Dutch arms, y'all. I love Dutch arms. How the brown bess becomes the brown bess, the King George I is the first German king of England, right? Mm-hmm. This is yes. Yes. This is no. I'm going back into teaching mode now. This is yes. This is no. All right. Before that, the English army is primarily the English doglock is their weapon. Okay? That is a distinct English weapon. That and a snop-ons. Okay? Snop-ons is very expensive. The English are all too cheap for wheel locks. Face it, I'm an Englishman. I like wheel locks. I'm not paying for that. Okay? And dog locks are cheap. George I, being German, says, I want a good German musket, right? That's what he wants. He wants a good German musket because he wants it to be that way. Remember I told you every country had, in France, in the 1690 fusil, is a big round face honking lock, sort of looks like that one, right? The King of France contracts for like 4,000 Dutch muskets, but he wants it to have the new fusil lock, the French style lock in. So the Dutch were like, okay, we got this, that's fine. They make it, the king reneges on his contract and don't pay for any of them. So they're stuck with 4,000 some odd Dutch muskets with a French lock in, and they're like, what the crap we're gonna do? George I gets to screaming for a good German musket, and they're like, we got a deal for you. Got a deal for you. So we sell them a good German musket with a French lock in it, and George I is like, this is wonderful, this is German musket, we're gonna throw all the dog locks away. From now on, all English weapons will look like this is a good German musket. It's a big honking French lock in it. That's a brown bess lock. It's a French designed round face lock. It's French. That's I run off my bunny trail, okay? So y'all have to forgive me for running off my bunny trail. All right, here's a Dutch brass mounted. Are we noticing anything different? Did you see the difference in the butt plates and everything? When I say a Dutch musket, it basically is a general pattern. When I say a general pattern, I'm gonna make the butt plate different than he makes the butt plate, than he makes the butt. It's all gonna look generally the same, okay? We're generally going to be in the area of the caliber that you want. If you're catching my drift there. Okay? That's why in the Lincoln Air Digs, the most found musket ball is a 6.99. You know why a 6.99? It'll go down a 70 caliber to an 80 caliber, right? If you got the 80 caliber, you're not doing really great in accuracy, but guess what? It still comes out the end of the barrel. If you're in the 70 caliber, you're jamming the bad boy down there, but it's still going down, right? All right, this is a Dutch musket. I love Dutch muskets. See the big flat lock? That's the big mark of a Germanic lock. Anytime you see a round face lock, think a French fusil. Roll cord. Type 3, I have that. There's an up close. They're gonna have an ornate, they're gonna have a little different, but you see in the similarities to a brown bess? This is a different bayonet. This musket right here was taken out of a soldierly way. and it tells what regiment, British regular regiment, this was issued to. So British regulars in the French and Indian War would have been carrying Dutch muskets. Not all of them, but I'm trying to tell you, that's how much they were common. And they were considered a first-rate weapon. This is a neat thing. We look at this. Do we all not think it's a pretty musket? Brass is prettier. I mean, come on. Leroy's an Indian. What do you catch with shiny stuff? Fish, Indian, and women, right? Jewelry. These are the things you catch with shiny stuff, right? It's beautiful. I'm not a native, and I'm definitely not a woman, but I do like the shiny stuff too. Okay? This is a private grade. Did we notice something? Is that going to be in our way if we're a modern reenactor and we're shooting and all of a sudden we're Hawkeye and we're taking a musket and we're killing somebody at 250 yards and I aim down the slit of the... Yeah. Did you do a lot of aiming? It's not even inletted into the tang, dude. Do y'all catching that?
It's sticking out.
Yeah, it's sticking out. Guess what? The ones on the butt plate are sticking out too. Big honking things to dig into your shoulder when you pull. You know? I mean, are you catching that? That's somewhat inletted. That's semi-inletted. Are we catching that? That right there, if I took that trigger guard off, it would probably have the impression of it in the wood. Are you catching what I'm saying? And when people say that, they get peaty. Especially, I love some of these stitch Nazis that get like nuts on me. Let's just talk. First thing we need to remember, this is a hobby. We're supposed to be having fun. If I quit having fun, I'll go do something else. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be a hobby, but we're supposed to be learning. That's the fun thing about it. But when you get a guy that counted the stitches and then he turns around with, you know, and I'm not knocking you. If you can afford this musket and this is a close facsimile, go for it. I'm not knocking nobody. But if you counted the stitches and then you come at me with something made in India that looked like we chopped it out of a bamboo stick and then go screaming at me, I'm not happy. Okay, that's me getting off my soapbox. This is a Dutch musket. This is in the Smithsonian. This is actually documented to the 1st Virginia. This is near to my heart because I'm a 1st Virginian. Do we see anything weird about it? It's got a rifle trigger guard on it.
Yeah.
It's got a rifle trigger guard on it. And it's got a set of sights. So what does that tell me? That's a modification after the war. But it's still neat. It's a big honking flat lock. Here is where the stitch Nazis and me a few years ago got in a problem. What kind of bayonet? That's a plug bayonet. And I had a very dude that thought he was the most intelligent dude out there in the world tell me that you wouldn't use a plug bayonet in the F&I because you used it as a knife because you would have never used it as a bayonet.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Pete, you were in the Marine Corps, right? If your sergeant screamed fixed bayonets, what would you have done with the plug bayonet? Because if you wasn't, would you have tried to explain to him it was a knife? Jury, would you try to explain to him it was a knife, not a bayonet? What would you have done? Fixed. Yeah, you would have been like, okay, this is going to be a wreck today, but here we go. Right? This was issued out. I did the 1st Virginia forever. They actually got 275 sea service muskets. And I have the names of the 5 ships that they come off of. And they were 3rd and 4th rate ships. And somebody goes, what's that got to do with it? The new naval carbine that took a socket bayonet was only given to ships of the line. Mm-hmm. 3rd and 4th rate ships got older ones. They were stocked to the muzzle in black with a bayonet and a cartridge box. What socket bayonet will go on something stocked to the muzzle?
Mm-hmm.
That one?
That one will. That one will. And guess what? I've had a stitch Nazi one time. Hey, you remember that, don't you? Mm-hmm. Went bananas on me for like a year. Like telling me how unoriginal socket bayonets were for our period. Plug bayonets were for our period. This is in the Smithsonian, y'all. Okay? So why I'm telling you all this is y'all need to do personal research for the personal unit that you are researching. Do your best. And your best is all you can do. And if something comes up different, and you're like, oh, okay, you know, you change it, you're not. This is what was sent to Braddock's March. This is the arms sent for Braddock's campaign. All right, muskets of the King's pattern without nose bands. And we all know what them are, because my Dutch musket don't have one on it. But you know what I'm talking about. The brass nose cap?
Yeah.
The only reason that's on there is if you fix your bayonet to keep from splitting the forearm. Most of the bayonets were not fit that great, so they can be of brass, copper, or steel. But that's what made it a new model. It had a nose cap. All right, but guess what? These are regulars for Braddocks, right? These are service for the regulars, right? Without nose bands, 1400. Okay? Steel rammers, they had steel rammers, 1400. Cartridge boxes for straps, 12 holes, 1400. The regular standard British Army box was to hold 30 rounds in the top to be a battalion box, 15 rounds to be a grenadier box. 12 holes. You know what that is? That's a screwed up contract, is what that is. And they sent it to the New World. 12 holes. I mean, I'm serious. I'm sorry. It's a screwed up contract, right? Swords with scabbards and for brass hilts. Sergeants, 20. Grenadiers, 82. Private men, 738. Drummers, 20. Halberds, blah, blah, blah. Drummers. Tents for the companies. Officers' tents of foot. All right, here's what gets me. For service of the 2 American regiments. These are provincials. These are not militia. These are provincial. Muskets with bayonets with single bridle locks, nose bands, and wooden rammers. Dutch. With nose band and wooden rammers. 1,000. Only 2,000 provincials there. What did that just tell you? Over half of them are Dutch. All right, so there's 1,000, there's 1,000. Guess what? They still sent them stinking cartridge boxes for 12 holes. So they had to get rid of them bad boys. They were a blight upon humanity somewhere in England. But somebody was getting them out of the way. But guess what? These are for provincials. Swords with scabbards, sergeants, grenadiers, drummers, private men. Look at that. I get tickled when I hear one of the best things in F&I. I do French now. I don't have, I do le français, okay? I am the French accent out there, I'm the southern detachment, okay? Even Cajuns walk up and go, oh, don't speak French, okay? Oh, don't do that. Please don't do that, okay? All right. Everybody wants to say, oh, we went to the Hawk and that was all that. 2,120. Somebody goes, well, Braddock's defeat, blah, blah, blah. We're going to argue that point all over. Are you trying to tell me, because you can go down to the Cherokee Reservation in their museum and you can find a whole lot of these things that look like machetes. You're trying to tell me you would have thrown away a blade in the wilderness? Would you have thrown away a blade in the wilderness, Leroy? We didn't throw away nothing. The natives didn't throw away nothing. I mean, the French buccaneer is an outdated weapon. Guess what? When the French finally started giving them out to the natives had them chopped off half, and everybody's like, oh yeah, they thought, no, they had knives made of the rest of the barrel. You didn't throw stuff like that away. But this is what I'm trying to show you. Dutch with nose bands. So they're actually ahead of the new pattern for the British regulars are, you know what I'm saying? But ain't this neat? And then we get down here and me and H was talking about that. What did we decide 4 and 2/5 bore mortars were?
Oh, 12 pound, it's the regular 12-pound,
12-pound mortar.
12 pound, yeah.
Okay, bore.
Except it'd be a 4-inch ball.
Well, they sent 15 of them for it. They planned for a European siege. I just thought that was neat. So we're looking at Dutch, right? Oh, man, me and this thing. There's me in the Cherokee Museum.
You look so young.
I do. Handsome. Still pretty, but really pretty there, young you. But what are we pointing at?
Gorget?
Yeah, looks like
Well, I'm pointing at the Gorget, but look at there. That's in the Cherokee Museum, y'all. There it is. I mean, there's the thing. That is actually the pattern that was in the Braddock's issuing. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like I said, anytime you see me with a lot of blades and guns, I'm getting a picture. This is at Williamsburg in their collection. They quickly shooted me off after that. And then we're going to go into some pouches. We're going to go past that because y'all are not interested in that. But I'm going to show you all the different cartridge pouches, and the hair bags, and the bags. All right, what is that? I just stopped there. It's a Massachusetts dog walk. I probably should have covered that up. But are y'all looking here? That's a military application musket. And what is that? This is English. What is that English?
Can't see it.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
It's French. It's a French. It's a French law. It's French law. It's Pig Latin. It's Pig Latin. But I mean, it's a cross between a French lock plate and an English dog lock. So not only is it a parts musket, they're swapping nationalities to get a musket. And what I really haven't showed in that, if I show you the whole musket, that's a Massachusetts provincial dog lock. It has a French cow's foot because that dude was smart enough to know that's a more comfortable stock. So he's fighting for the English crown, but he's actually stocked this musket like a French musket. Most likely because it was more comfortable. We're gonna go into New France, and people are like, why are we worried about New France? 3,400 muskets of Liege. Dutch muskets. Dutch muskets, okay? That's 1746 Canada. Dutch muskets. If you notice the other significant thing, now you as Russians wouldn't worry about it. What pees me off about playing F&I is 891 buccaneers. You never see a Frenchman with a buccaneer. You'll never see a French Marine reenactor with 90, I will say this ugly, and I'm not trying to be ugly, so if anybody is a French reenactor, don't take this ugly. They don't have the right French musket, and if they're really playing early, nobody will ever carry a buccaneer. I'm like, carry a buccaneer? But no, if it, all right, not in the F&I, but you know what I'm saying? The guys that play Militia that run around with the little toboggan on, and the breech cloth, which makes everything airish, nobody's got a buccaneer. You know what the buccaneer was given out to? Because we didn't trade that to the natives. Because what did we say natives like? Shiny things. So Leroy, you don't like the buccaneer, do you? Because it's a club, right? It's heavy, it's a club. You know what the buccaneer was given to? Because here's a neat fact. All right, the English moved the frontier forward because the oldest English son would inherit the estate. No other English child would inherit the estate, right? So they went to the New World because if you were the second son, magically, I could walk out here and go, look, here's a bunch of natives on my future cornfield. And it's mine now. And I mean, and now I can become a landowner, right? I mean, it's like they're not using these trees anyway. And we keep pushing the colony out. So if the English go to use something, if you notice on every campaign in the New World, they hire contractors. All your wagoneers, all your cowboys. And when I say cowboys, people are like, we're talking about the West. No, we're talking about the guys driving the stock to feed the army, the cowboys. All of that, the gunsmiths, all of that, that's all contract labor. Because when the conflict, or the campaign, not even the conflict was over, if I was the English king, I'd go, I don't need you anymore. Sorry, see you, bye. I'm happy with you. Oh, by the way, you're 100 miles in the frontier and I'm not paying for you to get back. Guess what? Become a town.
Manifest destiny.
Yeah, it's manifest destiny. Like I said, the Indians weren't using it anyway. It's just a pile of timber here. I mean, come on here. Yeah. All right, the French did it the opposite way because the French king was an absolute monarch, right? He owned everything. And when I say he owned everything, he owned everything. The French gunsmith in every Marine post, he didn't own the tools that belonged to the French king. So the French king got a cut of the fur trade. He got a cut of everything. He got a cut. He made a mob boss look easy. Okay, he got a cut. The French king got a cut. Having said that, that's why you had to, they shipped in, what was it, the virtuous women from the prisons? Because the French guy come over here to make money and then go back out. Well, going back to the buccaneer, the French peasants that were staying here, a French fusil is fine, and what I tell you about the wrist and they break and all that. If you get into a chief's grade gun, a fine chief's grade gun, you get into fine fusils. These are all light. The native like them. They're 2 to 3 pounds, depending on where they were made. Lighter than a standard musket. They're of 18 balls of 68 or 69 caliber. They get all the way down to like a 25, and some of them little bitty calibers. So if you were a native, you could get a lot more shots out of the same powder in the lead. That's a good thing, right, Leroy? But there's a drawback there, because I give him such a light, neat gun, it's going to break, right? The French King makes money by Leroy coming back going, oh, my fuse was broke. Well, that'll cost you 25 first today. French King gets cut up. You see what I'm saying? Now, you're a French peasant, right? I left you in the colony, right? If you come back in and you're my militiaman, I no longer own you. You're out here in the French colony. You got your farmstead, right? If you come into my French gunsmith and need your gun fixed, what did you just cost me? Everything. Money. You cost me money, and you're a peasant, and why would I do that? So I get a buccaneer, and a buccaneer makes an English dog walk look sleek. Okay? It's heavy, it's big, it's a club. But guess what? You don't break it. That's what, and every French ship that left a French port had to have 10 of them on there to be left in the colonies. You couldn't get back into a French home port with the buccaneers on your ship. That was the Sears and Roebuck shotgun of New France. Okay? It worked. So if you're being Militia and stuff, I see all these guys going, I'm a former Marine and I would have carried my 43 Fusee out. No, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. That would have went right back in the French arsenal. No, you wouldn't have. You know why I know? Because later on in the war, the French get to branding in the stock Aroy. Because so many Marines were selling their muskets. So he went to branding and Aroy, so if anybody showed up with a musket that wasn't a Marine, they said, Aroy, you were in trouble. So, there we are. Here's the magazine in Quebec. And this was the gun that New France loved, tool. The tool manufacturing, they were always behind models of the Army, but they always made them more economical. A tool was always lighter. So, all right, a 28 French pattern musket is a 3-banded musket, right? All right, the French Army goes to them in 28. Tool don't go to them until 43. It's a 46-inch long barrel, tool's 44. Just a little lighter. And we drop the frizzen, or the bridle frizzen, because you don't need that anyway, because they're really not using flashcards in history. They're on the French side. So they make it cheaper, okay? But why the Canadians like it, it's the same military gun, but if you take a half a pound or a pound off a gun and I'm walking all day long with it, I'm really tickled that it's a half a pound. Am I not right, guys? It's a half a pound lighter or a pound lighter. Tools were made really good. So New France like it. But we have 2,000 tools. We have 220 musketoons. Don't ask me, because that's a broad definition there. 12 blunderbuss, 392 guns from Liege. 414 buccaneers. You catching what I'm saying? Because now think, French, it's right the opposite. They have way littler settlers. So if we would have moved that to English numbers to give us relevance, I mean, that's huge. You know what I'm saying? That's a huge number there. 49 munitions of the Kings, 45 English guns, 182 Centiens with 4-foot barrels. 294 Centiens with this. You know why this is that? Because the end of the barrels were splitting. They saw them off. Do I really want the St. Anne at this time? All right. Muskets of Liege, tool hunting guns. Where is the tool muskets? I can tell you where they're at. They're in the hands of the French Marines. That's why the St. Anne's are left in the arsenal. Are you catching that? Because the tools here are hunting guns. Are you grabbing that? And if we go back to that, how many buccaneers is here? All right. 392, 256. The St. Anne was the low, they didn't touch the bad boy. It was like, oh, well, now I grab this one over here. So, I mean, there it is. But, now you're seeing what the population in New France is picking up. Okay? Am I boring y'all yet? Should I move faster? 52 Arsenal, 39 Buccaneers. See, I'm one of these geeks that I like to dig this stuff out and get it translated. Now these are Fusel Grenadiers. The only difference between a Fusel Grenadier and a common musket is the Fusel Grenadier has a sling, swivels on it, and the common doesn't. But Buccaneers of 12 caliber, that's what, 70 caliber? 12? Yeah, I think it would be like 70 or 72. All right, 130 of 14 caliber. 5-foot Buccaneers, these are little. 12 to 20 caliber. Fusel Grenadiers, pistols, that. If you notice, all the Liege muskets are gone. You know why? They went to the Militia. The Militia have them. Here is a French Buccaneer. I really like them, to tell you the truth. There's a French Buccaneer. That can go all the way from to a 62-inch barrel all the way down to like a 54-inch barrel in length. There's a French Buccaneer. Beginning of the war, let's see if we got anything there. Fine. Fusel fins, tool hunting guns. These are all the ones that we would have traded natives. There's a 2934 contract. These are Army contracts. And now we're getting into tool. That's 29 and 34. The 29 has a wood ramrod. The 34 is the same gun with a metal ramrod. If you notice, they only have one band. In the Army models, if you go to the Indian reproduction, they all call them 1717s. That's the Army model. So you see how far tool was back? Am I boring y'all with French arms? Because, I mean, it's heavy there. But see how tool was behind? There's the French bayonet. You would have seen that all over just about every nationality. Am I correct? In the Catholic realm, and there. I'm going to flip through a lot of this unless everybody wants to read through it. But this just gives you a little. Anytime you see a domino, that's a 3-banded musket. Why is a 3-banded musket important to you doing Russian? Is because your first 3-banded Russian musket is a copy of an Austrian musket, which is a copy of the French musket.
Right.
So if I'm not wrong, I think the first Russian model 3-banded musket's a 54. And it's a direct copy of the Army 28, the Tool 43, the Austrian 48, and you'll all see that later. French belly boxes, y'all don't care about French belly. You might care about French belly boxes. The rest of them, I like French belly boxes, but the rest of them don't give a flying crap about that. I will show this. This is an original box. And if you are in the English Army or the Prussian Army, you'll see the blocks. The Prussians used a lot of leather blocks because, I don't know why, but the Prussians used a lot of leather blocks. The English used a lot of wood blocks, but they were, the English and the Prussians were more of a pouch, and you had the block in it, okay? We call them cartridge box. The French had dedicated, and if you look, the Austrians, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not the dude on Russian boxes, but a lot of the Russian boxes had dedicated, they were shaped boxes, if I'm trying to get that out. If you understand what I'm saying? You see a shaped box. You don't actually see a Prussian box shaped until the end of the F&I. But you see it a lot in the French and the Austrian, and you see it some in the Russian. That's a French artillery box. That's a neat thing. I reproduced that. Right here is petards showing that. The next slide I think is funny. Right there is the original that's in a museum. And I loved it when I had a bunch of French reenactors come and argue with me that it all was wrong and that was wrong. And I was like, that's an original. That's an original. Well, it's got the wrong color on the embossing. Well, maybe you should take that up with somebody in 1745 because I just copied it from the original. Powder flasks. The French used a lot of powder flasks. I don't know if the Russian army did that. A lot of the other guys used cartridge boxes for quick action and then regular service. they used powder flasks. I know the English did not, and the Prussians did not. I don't know, did the Russians do any powder flask cohorns and horns? Okay. The French hung on to that a long time. That's why you see this Marine box that's just got these little, you know, it don't hold many rounds. It's because the Marines were police force. If you'll notice that. And going back to a belly box, this is interesting between the English and the French. An English stand of arms is a firelock, a bayonet, a sling, and a cartridge box, which is on the belt. It's a belly box. That's a stand of arms. So every time I issue you a musket, that's all the crap that it takes to fire this musket, right? Then I issue you a side box if you're in the English Army. And the only time you use this belly box is when you're on guard duty or quick action or something like that. Otherwise, this belly box is in the wagons, in the wagon train. If I'm a private soldier, unless I'm a grenadier. And there's a reason for that, because they have a smaller block where they can carry more grenades under it, so they have to have 2 blocks to have the same amount. So we go to the French Army, and you look at French Marines, and they have this little belly box. And why? Is because you have enough rounds for a quick action, cartridges for quick action. So he goes, oh, I'm in a sustained firefight. Y'all are shooting live, right? If I run at you at 100 yards, how many rounds are you going to get off at me? If you're loaded, you're guaranteed to get me off 1 round if you got a flint and it sparks, right? You might get me off 2 rounds. If I'm really slow and fall a lot, or drink a lot of liquid corn, you might get a 3rd or 4th round at me, but you've got enough rounds. So the French said all of their other guard duty and stuff like that are your basic stuff you loaded out of a flask and loose ball. And you go, why would you do that? Like the British pickets, you would load powder, ball, and then a piece of paper on top. And then if I was a corporal, when we changed the guard, I took my worm and I pulled the paper out, and you rolled the ball and the powder in my hand, and I give it to the next guard. And by the guy that had the morning duty, he didn't have much powder left. He had enough to make a noise, right? But see, if you use flask and stuff like this is easier. You can pour your powder back in your stuff. So there's an original in parts to Canada. That's one of the surviving ones in North America. The ones with the pour spouts, you see them in the Museum des Armies. Did you get to see that when you all went to the Museum des Armies? Or, yeah, I thought you did. It's a leather flask, bowled. Here's the one in Museum des Armies. So we can fly through that. That's probably not. And then we run into credits. So ta-da, that's all I got. Now, H just sent me a crap load of Russian pictures that I didn't get uploaded because my stuff didn't come in. So I need one of the techie people to come and get this off here where I can go do the. Look at there you go. Get the young techie people to get this off. Like this.
First time being useful.
Just, yeah, if you get it there, I'm good, dude. And y'all are like, there it is. Y'all's hero. You know? All right. Where is it? Right yours is 37. That's your 37 rush. Okay? At your, your first, and I said it was 50 something, but there's 37. So see guys, you've got to get me on the Russian stuff. I haven't studied it like I have the English stuff. But right there is a 37. That's pretty much what we're modeling that gun off of. Here's the 50. Talking about the French Kievski with the slope. So right here, here's the one that you'll see a lot of in the Russian service. But what makes it a copy of the Austrian is this nose cap. See, the French and all of that wouldn't have had this. The Spanish carried out, the Austrians carried out. They actually, it's messed up design. I don't know what. They just had to be different. They like soldered on part of a thimble onto that front. And I think that was just to make somebody mad. Definitely the gun builder. He's like, oh my gosh, why did you do that? But, and then here we got, what model was that? That is the 56. This was the one, was this the most used one y'all would have, H? The 56?
That'd be the most recent.
Okay. If you notice, the cow's foot's almost left, and it's straighter. It's a volley gun. And when people go, no, it's straighter because this, I say, over time, when it originally come out, it would have been straight. You find it funny if you look in French arms and English arms, by the time you get to the Napoleonic War, they're very straight stocked. They're not meant to lay in there to be comfortable. They're volley guns. And the French actually had one model in the Napoleonic War. It was the most ugly piece of crap I've ever seen, and you couldn't even lay down to hang it. So there's that. Oh, there's a grain cart. These are my other ones. Let's see. Yeah. If I can get my email up, I can project what H just sent me. Oh, I might have to put it on the Wi-Fi. Yep. Oh, there it was. Oh, there it is. These are better pictures of it. But if you notice, what we've been working on is just offline drawings. So I don't have an original Russian musket in my hands. The one thing about drawings is they can be inaccurate, and if they were done after the period, I thought this was really good. Do I have another one? No, I just have a bunch from my boss. Where is that? Pretty much the same.
Adam, you should have one from late last night from a regular J.H. Northrop email.
Well, it
that has
not come through on my computer.
Okay, because it has some of the watercolor stuff in it.
Okay. Well, let's see if it updates. Let's see if my little computer updates. While we're waiting on it updating, and I'm not going to guarantee we got it update. Have I bored y'all to death?
No.
Did y'all have fun?
Yeah.
Okay. Do y'all got questions? Please ask questions.
Yeah.
No?
Adam, tell about the story about tell about the story at was it the tool arsenal where the Dutch guy was almost started the Industrial Revolution on accident?
Yeah, well, it is. All right, so I told you France had 3 manufacturers. You have Saint-Étienne, and you have, Charleville. Charleville was such a big manufacturer, a lot of people interuse Charleville with French musket. Oh, it's a Charleville musket. And they mean every French musket. It's not, but that's how much Charleville produced, right? Well, Toul, if you look at that, the French, and when I say factories, it's not like a modern day factory. It's the English factories, the Prussian factories, the Tula is an exception. Tula is a large arsenal installation. But like Toul was a village. It's a French village. He has everybody in the village employed. All right. I have you employed making turtle guards. I have you employed rough stocking. I have you employed doing the prison. I have you employed. You understand what I'm saying? Having said that, interchangeable parts doesn't start to the Industrial Revolution, right? Right. This is yes. Yep. All right. Where Toul is, he's really next to the Germanic state. So most of his gunsmiths are Dutch. Okay? Actually, before the War of Austria's succession, Toul, when I say Toul, you gotta remember, this is an aristocratic line. This is a family. So when I'm saying Toul, I'm talking about yours. This is this aristocrat's family that owns this, right? He got a contract, he was sending stuff to the Caribbean. What's the problem if I send you arms to the Caribbean and it breaks? Where do I have to, I mean, you gotta wait for however for parts, right? And everybody makes their own parts. So here's the crazy thing. If I'm doing Saint-Étienne did it different. He was like, you build me 20, you build me 10, you build me this, you build me that. So you building me a musket, him building me a musket, is the Sears gonna interchange? No, because you both beat. All right, Toul broke it up to everybody does me a piece, okay? This was the Dutch's idea. They actually took a lock plate in every Toul naval musket that they sent to the Caribbean, had an extra lock. So you got issued your musket, you had a whole extra lock. So if it screwed up, you went back in. Well, this infuriated Saint-Étienne because the dude that figured this out used to work for Saint-Étienne, and Toul went and got him. Okay? Paid him out of serfdom and got him. So they argue amongst the French court, and Toole he's made his friends in the Naval Department. The Naval Department has made their friends, and long story short, Saint-Anne didn't get it done in the French court. So he's infuriated, right? So he actually gathers up a bunch of his guys and see, this is what we don't understand. We think of England as England. We think of Germany as Germany. It's not that way. We have a whole lot of Germanic states. Prussia is not all Germany proper at this time. People don't understand this. But in France, nobles still controlled areas. I mean, they had their own private armies. In the French army reforms, they're trying to get away from that. For this example, Saint-Anne took his little private army, marched it against Toul. Toul don't have enough crap to hold that, right? They walk in there and they kill the master gunsmith to come up with that idea. Kill him, boom, right there, and then shoot him. And then they ask the rest of them, so the rest of y'all are my Dutch gunmakers, right? Saint-Anne has took the village. I'm Toul. I've hauled ass on my horse because I didn't have enough guys to hold, right? You just watch your buddy that's pretty much the smart one in the pile take a bullet, and then they went, which one of y'all left know how to do that? Hell, I don't know how to do that. That's what happened. And the industrial revolution, they quit making extra parts.
I just sweep.
That was all over nobility. I mean, that's what it was. So how far Toul was ahead of the curve? Was it efficient to send 2 lots with every musket? No. But it solved a problem when you were on the other side of an ocean. So I think that's neat the way that they did stuff like that. You read about principalities, and that's what we have over in the American colonies. That's how you end up with every state having a legislature, every colony having a legislature. That all goes back to nobles and charters and the way we think, and we carried it over. The French did it too. They just did it with the main difference was you're Protestant and you're Catholic, and then you run in Russia and you get the Orthodox. So, it runs into, they made square wheels. I don't know. So there they are. Because you're like, oh, okay.
Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below in the comment section, and stay tuned for more information. We had a bunch of stuff from our 12th night programs. We'll be uploading that as we go here.